Well, here we are. It is Friday, May 5th, 2023, and this, of course, is the weekly video. We do these every Friday. We talk about what's happening over on eBay, what's happened over on live auctioneers, global member pages, auctions in Hong Kong, London, wherever they're happening. We try to cover it, and we do this each Friday. So before we get started into the eBay results for the week, I wanted to talk a little bit about a few things that are over on the global pages right now. For those of you that are subscribers, this is one of the pages for the European auctions. As you can see, there's a lot of material on here right now. There's a couple of very good auctions about to take place over in London in particular, in the UK in particular. There's some tremendous sales. Lion & Turnbull and Druids are having a couple of good auctions. And I want to just go through a couple of the highlights of just one of the sales. One of them has this. This is the, I believe this is a Zach Gallery. It just put this up this week. They have some pretty good things this time around. One of them is this cornerless pronk dish. These are extremely rare, and they were done by the designer cornerless pronk for the Chinese export market during the 1730s. They only did them for a limited number of time, a small amount of time, really. They were very expensive when they were produced, and this is one of them. It's got a very modest estimate of $1,000 to $2,000 with a $1,000 opening bid. It's got a single bid right now of 1,000 euros rather. It should get up to 3,000 or 4,000. Really fine examples of these can sell for 8,000 or 10,000. So you might want to check that out. And then over here, this is also at Gallery Zach. I actually talked about this in the Global Members video this week because this is a really nice roof tile, beautifully potted, about 12 or 13 inches tall, but just a great example. The modeling on this is really wonderful, very energetic, very powerful. I really like this. This is one of the nicest roof tiles I've seen in a long time. Beautifully done, and it looks like it's in great condition, and it has a reasonable estimate of just 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. Yeah, this would be euros, excuse me, not 1,000 to 2,000 pounds, 1,000 to 2,000 euros. It should easily go through that and get up to maybe around 3,000. But if you like Ming pottery, Ming examples, this is a nice one. And it is, let's see, how big is this thing exactly? 33 centimeters tall, so it's about 13.5 inches in height. Nice size, good one. And then there's this. There's 10 days to go. This is Lion & Turnbull in Edinburgh. Has this very nice pair of Celadon ground Famille Rose baluster jars, but very nicely detailed. They actually have a picture of it in the house where it came from. This is a good example. Beautifully potted, beautifully enameled, classic 18. There's the photo. There are the two jars in the house that they came out of. It's a pretty nice looking house, I would say, don't you? And this pair look to be in very, very good condition. They are 63 centimeters tall, or just a hair under 2 feet. Just a hair under 24 inches in height. The estimate is very low. I'm not sure why the estimate is so low. Just 300 to 500 pounds. They should bring 3,000 to 5,000. Maybe they forgot the zero. I'm not sure. It's already got a couple of bids. It's going to get up there. They're going to get up there. But if you're over there and you're in the position to pick these up, it gives you a very competitive edge because you won't be paying shipping. So if you're in the UK, you might want to check those out, especially if you're a dealer. And then this sale is taking place. I think this is Druids. No, this is also Lion & Turnbull. Excuse me. They have this brush pot that they've misdated as 19th century. Sure looks transitional period to me. It looks like a very, very fine one. There's the bottom of it. Looks okay. There's some very nice envoy decoration around the top. It's very hard to see, but it is there. But beautifully painted. I've had, I think, 6 inquiries through the Identification Assistance Service for this already. So I guess a lot of people are aware of them. They have a number of good-looking transitional pieces in the sale. I don't think they're copies. They look absolutely okay to me. So we'll see how this does. But if you're looking around at those sales, check that out. Check that out. And then this is coming up. I believe this is Millet Brothers has this. Yeah, and down in Boonton, New Jersey. This really nice piece of silk. Unusual coloring, wonderful, wonderful lattice, beautiful background colors, meticulously woven. It's some sort of altar hanging, table hanging. but the decoration is just outstanding. It looks like it's probably from the early part of the 19th century, possibly late 18th century, but a very, very fine example. And the estimate is very cheap, $300 to $500. It should bring $2,000 or $3,000. But you never know today. You might get a bargain. You might get a bargain. If you could pick this up for under $1,000, you're doing great. If you buy it for the estimate, you stole it. And then this, a hunt bowl, Chinese export, 1780s hunt bowl. Nice example, classic type, made in the 1780s. This is at Brunk's coming up in Asheville. This is a reminder of that sale. It's in 2 weeks, and they have a number of very, very good things. All right, so there's a lot going on the global pages, both on the U.S. side and on the EU side. If you haven't checked through your account in the last few days, I would urge you to do it. There's some nice things there. And some of the results from this week, here's one of the relative bargains. This was at the McGinnis sale up in Amesbury, Massachusetts, not far from here. There's this very nice 19th century Chinese watercolor of a gentleman. It looks like he's before a judge for something. Nicely painted, very well rendered on paper. This is not a pith painting. This was on paper, and it sold for just $250. Somebody got a bargain. That was a great buy. That was a really nice buy. And also in the sale was this, a large pair of pistol handle urns with faux bois decoration in blue and browns and aubergines at the bottom. Nicely done. They don't look like they've been repaired or restored in any way, but maybe they were. I don't know. I didn't get a condition report on them. I had a couple of inquiries, and I thought $3,000 to $5,000 would be the price. And in the end, that's about right, because there's $3,750 was the selling price, and of course they have to add on the buyer's premium, which would put it up to around $5,000 for the pair. These were very, very nice examples, made around 1800, probably for the American market at that point. They said 18th to 19th century, just a reasonable enough estimate. And there was a good sale. They had some nice things in that auction. You may remember the McGinnis sale a month or so ago. I had that big lot of good Japanese material that went through there. All right, and then hopping over to eBay, the things that we put in the newsletter last week all did pretty well. This did fine. This was that Pactong, or rather pewter and jade-handled teapot that had the Yixing liner in it. And the Yixing liner, you may recall, was damaged. It had a break on the inside, which does affect the value fairly heavily. But it was signed. There was a potter's mark on the bottom, which is always good to see. This is a nice example. It had a bit of damage. Without the damage, this probably would have brought $2,000 or $3,000, maybe $4,000. But with the break to the inside of it on the liner, it held the price back. It sold, but it did fine in the end. For a piece with damage, it did fine. Brought $641.15. And then this was sort of a steal. I think a lot of people misread this and thought that it wasn't Kangxi period, but it was. And if you come down and take a look at it, there's the bottom of it. That's a Kangxi foot, Kangxi base. The enamels were fairly light in tone, and I think it might have thrown some people off because they didn't think they were quite dark enough. But if you look at the rim with all the little bits of fritting on here, all the other characteristics that you always see on Kangxi dishes from the first quarter of the 17th century, the first part, that's what they look like. That's how they come out. And somebody bought this plate, get this, for $203. All right. It says it was, it was restored. Okay, there's the rest. Restored, it was in half. Oh, okay, so it was split in two, and it was re-glued. Okay, well, $203 then is reasonable. All right, I didn't see that before. My apologies. But still, a nice plate, even for $203. It's a good example. If you couldn't have, because if it hadn't been damaged, I would have thought this would bring $800 to $1,200. So that explains that. Mystery solved. All right, and then over to this, the iridescent glazed miniature vase. I had somebody ask me this week. They said, "Is this technically a miniature vase because it's 6 inches tall?" And my view on it was it? Yeah, it probably was technically. There's no hard line in what describes a miniature vase, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a Mei Ping form. Typically, I think of Mei Ping vases as being 8.5 to 14 or so inches in size. This one was around 6 inches, but a nice early example. And it did very well. It brought more. I had actually talked to the seller on this, and I told him it would probably bring $800 to $1,200, and it went way over that. Ended up selling for $4,150. A lot of people liked this a great deal. This was a nice example, but monochromes are in right now. It kind of makes sense. Monochromes are very popular right now, and there's a lot of interest, as we saw with that Bronx sale a few months ago, where they had all the miniatures from that old collection in New York. They all did very, very well. They all brought, $600, $700, $800, way over their estimates, because they all had very modest estimates. But this was a nice example. It was a very sweet vase. And then over here to this, the tea caddy. It had some, looked like it had some, had a repair to the bottom, as I recall. Let's see here. Or it had a crack or something. It had a little bit of a line under here, something going on with it. At any rate, it was also, it looked like it may have had some later enameling done to it. Up here around the edge, or that may just be blue enamel that they use to do it at the kiln. It's overglazed blue, which is sort of unusual for these. But it was the painting on it was neat. The decoration was rather interesting. It looks a bit like clobberware, but it's sort of a mysterious thing. I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was a very attractive piece of porcelain. Loved the parrot on it. It's very pretty. And it sold for $507. So I guess a lot of people liked it. Because these tea caddies often sell for $200 or $300, but this one seemed a bit better, more interesting. And let's see, who was the seller? It was the seller, Oriental London sold this. It's a fairly new seller. He's got just 92 feedbacks. Like I said, $507. Pretty good price for that. And then this, the enameled, Peking enameled ewer done in the form of an Islamic metal piece. This was a shape that was adopted from the Middle East by the Chinese, and they sort of exaggerate the form. You can find the same, very similar form in porcelain from the Ming Dynasty, very reminiscent. This was a later example from the Qing Dynasty, but beautifully decorated, very finely enameled, and I love the cobalt ground on it. And it's got auspicious characters, auspicious figures running around in dark enamels on top of the blue base enamel. This is very pretty, really nice example, and it took off. It did fine. When I think last week when we were looking at it, it was $20 or $30 or something, and it had a few days to go, but ended up jumping up to $2,026 at the end. It was good size. It was 15 inches tall, so it was a pretty big one. Some of these are a bit smaller. They're 10 or 12 inches. This is particularly large, I guess, and that helped push the price. Unusual sizes often have pretty big prices on a pretty big impact on prices. And then over to this robe. Now, this seller had sold this robe several days before it got listed last week, and evidently the buyer from the last sale didn't pay for it, so the guy was forced into relisting it. And this time around, it brought $2,857, which I think is the same or a bit more than what it brought last time, which is unusual. Often relistings can be dangerous because people will look at it and say, well, it was just up there. There must be something wrong with it. That's why it was reposted. But fortunately for some sellers today, their audience, their potential buyers, recognize that there are a lot of unpaid issues with buyers, in particular from mainland China, where they bid on things in speculation and then they try to sell it to somebody else before they have to pay for it. And if they can't pay for it, they just walk away from the deal. And in this case, I think that's probably likely what happened. Or they just told the guy they're not going to pay for it because they maybe knew right away they couldn't make a good profit on it. So they just leave the transaction. They just abandon the cart and don't pay for it, and that's the end of it. Fortunately, I hope he sold it, and I hope whoever bought it this time around pays the bill. This guy is a seller in Ipswich, Massachusetts. That's not far from here. It's about 20 minutes from where I live. All right, and then over here, this really nice dragon-handled mug. This is by Cut Shing. We talked about this a good bit last week because he was one of the most well-known silversmiths in China. This is a very nice a mug with a battle scene on it. It's a tapered form, sort of like with a lighthouse form. Nice piece. There's the mark on the cut mark right here on the bottom. That's what you want to see. And $2,108. Good price. Nice looking pot. And over to this, that blue and white 18th century export mug. with the serpent handle. I like this a lot. I thought this was very nice. I think we saw that there was a small hairline in the handle or something. Tankard has got a retouch to the base of the handle. Okay, there was some sort of, whoever did it did a really good job because I can't see it. And sometimes people say that things have been repaired when they really haven't. They're looking at a piece of white glaze that got smudged a little bit and they think, oh, that's a repair. But anyway, this was a nice mug, really nice mug, very classical. And somebody picked it up for $203. That was a very fair price. Really fair, really fair. And the lamp, the late Qing Republic period lamp. Here it is, that heavy blue enamel, this thick blue enamel you see on the ground. Pretty typical of late Qing and early Republic work. And some of the colors are really soft in here. And as I mentioned last week, I love how they do these leaf form cartouches on these pieces, or they have the fan shaped cartouches, this sort of thing. Very attractive all the way around. I like the vases up here and the scholars' objects and so forth. Very pretty table lamp. And it did well in the end. It brought $810. And this is what I've talked about before many times, and some people are sick of hearing about it, but if you have a vase that's been made into a lamp, sell it as a lamp. When a piece is selling as a lamp, it's attractive to a whole new market, not just Chinese buyers, but people looking for a great table lamp. And today, if you've been out shopping around for table lamps, you know how expensive good ones are. They're hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And this is one made of a nice piece of antique Chinese porcelain. It was nicely mounted, beautifully set up. And there it goes. Without all that, I suspect this vase would have probably brought $300 to $400 without the hardware on it. And then this was that restored Celadon ground vase that was also 60 inches tall. Not quite as big as the ones that are coming up over in England, but pretty close, 3 inches smaller. It had a repair to the bottom, and it had another minor restoration. I forget what it was, but very nicely done. Beautiful example, made around 1840. And in the end, it did fine, even with the bit of damage and the restoration to the bottom. It brought $898.86. Very good. This was sold by Migolari over in the UK. He's a very good seller. We have him on here all the time. And then moving on over to this, the platter. Nice platter, classical late 18th, early 19th century export ware. And this one was nice though. I kind of liked it because it had willow trees in it. It had one of those ridiculously oversized peonies that they use in a lot of these paintings. You'll often see these platters, and there'll be a series of people in the background, a few rocks, and a balustrade or something. And then there's this enormous peony coming up out of it that's 10 times scale or 100 times scale. Peonies aren't that big, but it's an interesting element in interpretation when they draw them on porcelain. And the willow trees were very nicely done, very finely detailed. You always want to look at, when you look at these paintings on export pieces, look for the small areas, look for the little areas where the details are going to appear, and see how well done they are. And in this case, the willow branches, the willow leaves, are all very nicely rendered, which is a sign of better than average quality. And the same thing goes down here at the bottom, the way they shade in the rocks and the tree stump and all this. It's just very nicely done. Just a great little plate. And what did it bring? Somebody picked it up for $497, but it was atypical drawing, unusual drawing, and he dated his 18th century. I think it might have been early 19th. It could have been either. And it was just barely a foot long, so this wasn't an enormous platter, but it brought $497 because the quality was very good. And the colors were very, very appealing. The cobalt tones were really, really nice, rich, full saturation, and interesting objects all through the picture. There's a bunch of like scholars' objects there. There's a rock there that looks like a tabletop, and there are flowers pushing up under it, and then on top of it are books, incense burners, incense stick holders, and so forth. Very nice, very nice. And over to this, another Kangxi plate in enamels. Nicely done again with the giant rocks, just like on the other one. This one was obviously done about 90 years before the platter we just looked at, but nicely done butterflies, slightly shaped rim, a rather good example. I think, didn't this have a repair on it or something? Maybe it didn't. There's one that had a repair. I don't think this is it, but Kangxi period. Good looking porcelain. There's a good look at the enamels. The enamels were beautifully done on this. Very, very nice. The aubergine was very soft too. It was like a gray blue in color. I like that. It's rather elegant. And it did fine. It ended up selling for $641. And this was a large plate. It was just a little under, let's see, it says professional restorations here and there. I don't know what that means. It's always good to, if you see that, always good to call them and say, you know, what does here and there mean? Because it could just be a tiny touch-up on the rim that barely shows up under a black light, and it could mean disaster. Obviously, in this case, it was probably very small repairs. It was just a tiny bit under 12 inches in diameter. It was 28 centimeters, so it's a good-sized plate. Nice size. And then over to this. This thing had hit everything but the lottery. This thing had a lot of damage to it. But it's a type of 1780s export ware that's very desirable with this very fancy interior. Often they didn't do this interior as well as doing the outside. They would do this on the outside, but when they got to the inside, they would use a less elaborate decoration on many of these bowls. This one was done, you know, full boat. They did the whole thing. It definitely needs to be cleaned up. Whoever repaired it did a pretty abysmal job. The glue is showing through here and there. All of this can be, you don't even need a restorer for this, to be perfectly honest. You could soak this bowl, get it apart, and if a little patience and skill, you could probably fix this with a couple of drops of crazy glue here and there, and it would really clean up nicely. Take it all up, just pull it apart. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Soak it in hot water, get it apart, clean up where the glue is on the edges, and then reattach it with, you know, like a crazy glue gel is, I think, the best thing to use. Follow the instructions. Don't inhale the stuff too much because it does smell. And I think this bowl would present a lot more nicely, because here you can see where they pushed it together and the glue actually just oozed out through the break, and they didn't bother even wiping it off. So I don't quite know who did probably somebody did the repair in their kitchen, who knows. But this was a beautifully done bowl, and it ended up doing okay. With all that, it still sold for $295, and it was roughly about 10.5 inches in diameter. So there you go. And over here, here's another export bowl. Made a little bit later than the previous one, probably around 1850. Nicely done, though. This is a rose mandarin, as you know, and a nice overglazed blue enamels, nicely detailed on the inside. Not a lot of wear to it. I don't see a lot of damage anywhere. Go over it before I say it wasn't damaged. Make sure. As I recall, it was okay. It had a hairline in it, one hairline there, and I think that was it. So it had a hairline or so in it, and that was about it. Nice looking bowl. Ended up selling for $779 because it was, all it had was a hairline, apparently. So that makes a big difference, even though this was made 60 or so, 70 years later than the previous example that was badly damaged. And then this is a bit of a mystery. This was a really good buy. This is a small tureen, very nicely painted, done probably around 1850 to 1870 or so, but wonderful enameling, nice banded handles on here, mushroom finial on top, and ended up selling for just $251 for both pieces, for the platter and for the tureen. This was from Migolari. Again, how long is this plate? See, the tureen is just, well, the tureen was just barely 8 inches in width. That's a small tureen. And you may not know this, but small tureens are pretty rare. When you get 8-inch tureens or smaller, you know, those small table pieces are less common than the bigger tabletop, the bigger tureens that we see. And this one had its under tray, and I think $251 for that was a good buy. And then over to this, the pair of tortoiseshell boxes. I forget how they listed them because they don't dare say tortoiseshell on eBay. They just called them Cantonese relief carved box in silver brooch. Okay, the second one was just a brooch. This was a box. It needed to be cleaned up. The tortoiseshell needs to be rejuvenated a little bit. It's very dry looking. You need to oil this. If you have tortoiseshell pieces like this, you can put bits of oil, moisturize it a bit. You know, maybe put it in a bathroom for a few weeks to let some humidity get to it and get it back into condition. And once that's done, the color would be wonderful. This is closer to the color you want to get. We have these tones of brown in the background. And I know there's a number of you out there that collect tortoiseshell, so I hope one of you got that. That was a nice piece. And both pieces just went for $641. That's a relative bargain. And then over here to the pith painting. We've talked about this a couple of times, I know. I just put it in there because I just liked it so much. It was very unusual subject matter for paintings on pith, because typically pith paintings depict more colorful aspects of Chinese domestic life, people repairing things, tradesmen working on things, court scenes, garden scenes, this kind of thing. And this is a monk talk. It looks like he's talking to the Monkey King or something. Just a really interesting little pith painting. And it did well. It brought $515, which in today's world for pith painting is a very strong price, because as you all know, most of the time you see a pith painting come up, unless it's by Sun Qua or something, it sells for, framed in this size, will sell for just maybe $150 to $250. This one did more than double that, coming in at $515. I like it though, I still like it. And then this clobbered bowl. This was sort of a mystery bowl. It's been clobbered. I read this as being Chinese, and it looks like they added a blue mark or did something on the bottom here. But this looks like a Chinese, like an 18th century Chinese bowl. And because of the clobbering, and I think it confused a lot of people, and they just called it generically Amari, which could be Japanese or Chinese. Somebody picked this up for just $35. And this gets us back to the old leave a bid, for heaven's sakes, always leave a bid. Because I know some of you looked at it and maybe you weren't sure. You can always find out what it is. It was just a tiny bit. It was about 5.5 inches in diameter, so it was a decent sized piece of porcelain. It had European clobbering on it. The blue on this sure looks like a Chinese bowl. From what I'm seeing, the way the decoration is done. And I think somebody just, maybe a few buyers out there just weren't quite sure what to make of it, so they just stayed away from it. Don't know why. Whether it was Chinese or Japanese, $35 was an absolutely very low price. It was a steal, basically. All right, and that was it. So the week was the prices were all over the place last week, and on the newsletter page. And what I've said many, many times is come over to the page, sign up for it. It's free. You can join this page for free. You just fill out this little link, click this, and just fill out the form, send it in. And each Friday when we update the page, you'll get a notice saying it's been updated. And as far as the names go, you don't have to even give me a name. It's not required. All I really need is the email address. If you want to throw a name in there for reference, go ahead. But do that. And then when the newsletter comes out each week, you can go through the listing, down the page, and pick out the things that you want to go after, and maybe start leaving some bids right off the bat so you don't forget. That's what happens 99% of the time. I know I've heard from a lot of you. You'll have something on the newsletter page that you saw, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I forgot all about it and I didn't go back to leave the bid on it. What I would recommend you do, the minute you get the newsletter, go in and just leave a small bid. Even if it's a crazy, stupid bid, at least eBay will notify you when the lot is coming up if you've been outbid. So it'll at least help you get it on your radar screen a little bit. I find putting it on a watch list doesn't do much good for you because you don't get the notifications from eBay. If you leave a bid on it, they send you you get an electronic notification when you go to your page. And as you can see, these are the things that were on there for just last week. There was quite a lot of material on there. And as I've said several times in the last month or so, a lot of listings seem to be coming back on there. And it may be because the big auction houses, the commissions maybe are pushing people away. I don't know. But there seems to be sort of an increase in material coming onto eBay. So there we are. Now, last thing I want to talk about, a few things that will be on this week's newsletter page. Get you over there and take a look. One of them is this very nice dragon rondelle, 19th century. Looks like it's probably slightly before the first half of the 19th century. Nice looking example, made around probably 1830 to 1850. It's up to $2,000 so far. It closes on Sunday. I suspect it'll go up another $400 or $500. I think the price is pretty close to where it's going to end up, but it could still go up another $300 or $400. And then this wonderful little Pectong box with copper liner. It's an ink cake box. Looks like it's in nice condition. Late Qing copper bottom here, stamped by the maker, and so forth. These are very collectible. If you like scholars' objects, this is an interesting thing to own. They have a great feel to them. They're rather heavy and have a very nice aesthetic to them, and they usually have a beautiful patina. Do not polish these if you buy these. Just leave them alone. If they've got dirt or grime on them, soap and water is perfectly fine, and then maybe wipe it down with a little oil afterwards. But that's a nice box. It's only up to $32. It's got 2 days to go. Should sell for $200 or $300, but we'll see. And then this rosewater bottle, Chinese, made for the probably for the Indian market or the Persian market. There's the bottom of it. Looks like an 18th century example. The seller has it listed, and I think he's calling it Kangxi period. I'm not convinced that it's Kangxi, but I do believe it's 18th century. I think maybe the dating is just slightly optimistic, but it's only up to $196. Should get up to the $600 to $800 range by the time it's over. All right, and then over to this, one of the prettiest little export plates I've seen in a long time. This is a really sweet piece of porcelain with this very nice geometric lattice border going around the outside, and then these sprigs of floating flowers all around the center. Very nice high quality porcelain on here. Note the porcelain quality. Very white, very clean, very well done. And it's up to just $13. It closes on Tuesday. It's about 1 foot in diameter. And I think he's provided, this is Stanmore or whatever, Stanhope. He usually has pretty good pictures. Yeah, that's the bottom. Looks absolutely fine. There's some natural wear around here and here, but I don't see any damage or repairs to it. And it's a very nice pattern. Really, really nice pattern. I'd love to see a dinner service of this. It would be elegant, but beautifully done, beautifully done. And it closes, like I said, on Tuesday. You know, leave a bid on it of $100 right off the bat. You might get it. He's dated it tentatively to 1740. I think it's made a little after that, but it is definitely an 18th century platter and very fine quality. And then over to this, a Vietnamese market, a dish with an immortal in the floating clouds. So there we go, or floating with looks like a fish coming up under him. And some celestial, a moon and a celestial thing for the stars above them. And you know, this is the Vietnamese export market material. It closes on Tuesday. It's up to just $29. This should bring blue to hue like this will bring you know, 300 to 500, 300 to 400. That's where it should get. So if you like blue to hue and you've wanted to buy a piece of it, that's a good example, I think. And then over here to this is nice. This is a good piece of, let's see, who's the seller here? Oh, this is Loft Seeker selling this. 17th century Chinese bowl for the Japanese market. Late Ming Dynasty, beautifully done. Nice old bowl. This is completely legit looking. I like this, and it's nicely potted. The shape of the bowl is very appealing. He's even shown that it's got a very, very faint hairline in here, which doesn't bother me in the least. There's the foot rim, exactly how it can look, sort of grungy and rough around the edges. Really nice example with the leaf pattern on it. Sometimes you'll see the same pattern with the leaf, and then there'll be some calligraphy over here. They did them that way, and sometimes they added a little red enamel with a seal. But this was a very well-known pattern. If you collect Chinese porcelain for the Japanese market, this is a good example. It's got 8 days to go. Leave a bid on it right away of $150 and see if you get lucky. It should bring 300 or 400 anyway, maybe 5, but you never know these days. And then again, another very nicely done shaped rim Chinese export platter, late 18th, early 19th century. Again, very nicely done willow trees. You want to come in very, very similar in quality to the other one that we looked at a few minutes ago. Always check the little details. There we go. It's actually got the same outer border. These little floral devices here. What's this thing say? Oh, that's just one of those square patch bottoms they put on these. You see this sometimes on porcelain, and I've never had anybody tell me why. Whether there was something there or something they put under it to hold the dish up during the firing, but you end up with these patches on some of these export pieces. Nobody's ground off the finish. That's from the firing, and you know that because you see little redness around the outside, and that's from iron oxide in the paste when it was heated in the kiln. So this was exposed when it was fired. But it's a nice looking little dish. And it's up to just $37. It should get up to $200 or $300 or $400 pretty quickly. But again, if you're looking for one of these, just leave a bid on it and get it started. And then you have this Vietnamese or Thai market rather, Bang Krong bowl. It's up to just $100. It closes Sunday. Overall, an excellent antique condition. This is Loft Seeker, reliable on his stuff, I think. He always has been. 6.7 inches in diameter and looks to be in very nice condition. This bowl should go $500 to $700 by the time it's all over. So plan on that. But if you're looking for a good piece of Bang Krong, this is it. This is a 19th century, first half of the 19th century bowl. And then lastly is this. Ignore the horrifying red stand on the bottom. God. I don't know what sometimes decisions people make to paint things, I never understand them. But fire engine red is not the color I would pick to go under a subtle old late Ming to early Qing incense burner. But this is a good incense burner. There's nothing wrong with it. There it is here. There's the mark in the bottom. And there it is here. It looks absolutely fine. Right now it's up to $908. It's only had a couple of bids. It should get up to $1,600 to $2,500 by the time it's over. It's got a Xuandi mark on the bottom, which all of them had. Of course, that doesn't mean it's from that period. It isn't. It's later, but that was the mark that they always seem to pick for, well, 95% of the time anyway. And this is from Andrew. What is this? This is a crazy name. Andrew Chernobyl. Andrew, I can't even pronounce it. Why would he do it? Something brokerage. He's been on here before. We've had his stuff on here before. He gets all kinds of stuff. He always has hundreds of things for sale, and occasionally he gets a nice piece of Chinese work of art, or a nice Japanese piece. And whoever he has working for him knows how to describe them and date them pretty well, I think. And this was a nice thing. This was a nice thing. There's a lot of fake bronzes on eBay, as you all know. Okay, Anders Harnish Brokerage Inc. There it is. All right, there we got it. He is located in Hawaii, Honolulu. All right, that's it for the week. A lot of stuff going on. We'll have the newsletter pages will be loaded later on. Well, by the time you get to seeing this, they'll all be done, of course. And the global member pages will be updated tomorrow morning. There's a couple of sales on there that ended since we updated it the day before yesterday, and they've sold, and we're going to get those off. So if you want to go back and check prices, do it this evening or early tomorrow morning. I get up at 5, so you have to get there before I do. All right, have a wonderful weekend. It is summer, and well, it's spring. It's heading towards summer. The sun is out today for the first time in a week, and have a wonderful weekend. And thank you, and give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, do all that good stuff. All right, see you all next time. Bye-bye.